Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Rosa Di Donato.
And I'm Marian Leary.
And you're listening to Amplify Nursing, a Penn nursing podcast supported by the Pinola Fund for Innovation in Nursing.
Amplify Nursing features nurses who are leading the way in science, policy, and innovation.
Our guests defy stereotypes, define practice, and disrupt convention.
We highlight the breadth and depth of nursing influence on society by amplifying nurses who are pushing boundaries and breaking down barriers to build a new paradigm.
And I think that's what really nursing is looking for just now. The nursing workforce and on the floor, the clinical team are looking to be heard. So this process and this methodology allowed us to apply that.
For the first episode of Season 12 of Amplify Nursing, we highlight a collaborative innovation program between Penn Nursing, the University of Stirling, and NHS Forth Valley, supported by a Fulbright program grant. This conversation is led by our very own Dr. Marian Leary, Director of Innovation at Penn Nursing, as she speaks with Professor Ashley Shepard, Deputy Dean, Faculty of Health Sciences and Sport at the University of Stirling, Wendy Nemo, Interim Head of Efficiency, Improvement and Innovation at NHS Forth Valley, and Dr. David Watson, Corporate and Acute Director of Nursing at NHS Forth Valley. Together, the four discuss how this partnership introduced human-centered design methodology to nursing education and practice, fostering innovation across academia and healthcare. The program adapted elements from the U.S.-based Johnson & Johnson Nurse Innovation Fellowship, training NHS nurse leaders to tackle real-world challenges. Highlights include building one of Scotland's few dedicated NHS innovation teams to drive cultural change and technology adoption post-COVID, using design thinking to address ICU staffing and skill mix issues through empathy mapping and co-design solutions, and plans to embed design thinking into undergraduate nursing curricula while expanding its use in solving organizational challenges. This conversation underscores the importance of end-user engagement, listening to staff, and using collaborative innovation to transform healthcare delivery, and highlights how international collaborations increase innovation spread in nursing and healthcare.
All right. Well, I am so excited. I'm joined here today with my University of Stirling and NHS Forth Valley colleagues. We've been working on a project together for, the last year, bringing the innovation methodology to each of these organizations in a variety of ways. But I want to talk about sort of the impetus to this and then some of the projects we've worked on. So I'm first going to introduce my colleague, Professor Ashley Shepard, who was really a key partner in us working together for us in the States across the pond here in Scotland. So, Ashley, welcome.
Thank you.
So, can you just give us a little background on what you do here at the University of Stirling and why you thought it was so important to expose your faculty and students to the innovation methodology?
Yes, thanks, Marion. So my name is Ashley Shepard. I'm the Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences and Sport here at the University of Stirling, and I'm a Professor of Nursing and have been a professor for the last 3 years. So here at the University of Stirling, we introduced quality improvement methodology to our students a number of years ago, and we were probably the first school of nursing in the UK to do that. About 2 to 3 years ago, I was really intrigued in terms of the literature on innovation in nursing and started to read as many papers as I could on innovation. And the more I read, the more your name, Marion, kept appearing. So I was really keen to get in touch with yourself to just learn more about the innovation in nursing and design thinking methodology, and to see whether we could use that not only within the university, but also with my NHS colleagues. So we started talking via Twitter a number of years ago, and that collaboration began then. And we started talking maybe about over a year ago about applying for some funding to bring you over from the States to work, as I say, with staff and students here at the university, but also with the NHS. So we applied for funding and we managed to get a Fulbright grant to bring you across. And it's been great to have you here working for the last 2 weeks with us and it's just been such an exciting 2 weeks in terms of your interaction with the faculty, staff, and with students.
So I just want to highlight that for those who aren't using social media in this way, that, like Ashley mentioned, the collaboration could not have happened had we not known each other randomly on Twitter back in the day when Twitter was actually a decent platform. So, there are pros and cons to social media. This is an absolute pro. All of my most beneficial collaborations in nursing have come from random people I've met on social media. So, highly recommend nurses getting on social media and using it in that way. So, thank you for reaching out to me back then and starting that dialogue that which has now led to 2 years later this incredible program and me being able to come over to the University of Stirling on what is a beautiful campus in a beautiful country with beautiful people, so kind and nice. So the program that we have been working on for the last, say, year to 6 months has been with our colleagues at the NHS Forth Valley. And so I am also joined by two of them. I'm going to let Wendy introduce herself first, and then we also have David here.
Thanks, Marion. I'm Wendy Nimmo. I'm the Interim Head of Efficiency, Improvement and Innovation within NHS Forth Valley. My background is as an ITU nurse, so it's delighted to be here. Ashley contacted me about a year ago and actually shared some of your articles and asked me to follow you on the Twitter at the time to have a wee look. And at the time, I was the innovation lead within Forth Valley, and we were using design thinking methodology, the Scottish approach to service design. So it was very much aligned to the human design methodology that I had seen that you'd been using within nurses. And I was really keen to think about how we could change the culture within the NHS to get people to be able to think differently and use the design thinking methodology. We were working very reactively at that time, and there was a number of challenges that we knew that were happening post-COVID. So it was really thinking about how we kind of approached it differently for us moving forward. So it's been really exciting to actually be involved in this programme.
So the relationship that NHS Forth Valley and University of Stirling have, I think, is pretty unique, or at least to me, especially today in that workshop, seemed very unique and fruitful. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you do together and how that relationship came about and the benefits to the students, the clinicians?
Yeah, you're right. I think we think that the collaboration we have between the university and NHS Forth Valley is unique in Scotland and perhaps unique in the UK. I think as a higher education institution, we work exceptionally closely with our NHS colleagues. And about 2 years ago, we developed a partnership between the university and the NHS board, but also with our local FE college, and that's the Forth Valley College. So we work together on a number of areas: education, skills development, and the area that Wendy and I are involved in is research and innovation. So what we're trying to do in the research and innovation area is to bring academics and clinicians closer together to collaborate on research, but also much more so in innovation. And that's obviously what we're talking about today, and to try and get the nurses more involved in innovation. So yes, I think we work closely, very closely together. I probably work as closer with Wendy than many of my university colleagues, and I think that's reaps benefits not only for the people that work in both institutions, but also for our students, because 50% of the programme is spent within the clinical areas. So it's really important to us that we work very closely with our clinical colleagues to make sure that our students are getting a great experience.
It's my understanding that the work that you do, Wendy, within NHS is pretty unique in terms of the innovation space. How did that come about, and how do you see innovation within the work that you do?
It's an interesting question, Marion. I suppose for me, we're very unique in the situation that actually we're one of the only boards within NHS Scotland who have a dedicated innovation team. I came into post 3 years ago and there was no innovation team at that time, but we knew that we needed to think about how we could do things differently. We knew that we needed to look at technology and we needed to look at transformation and what that would look like. At that time, we secured funding for a post for an innovation lead, which I stepped into. At that time, it was about how we built a team that would be able to work with kind of services within the NHS, to look at how we did things differently. How did we secure funding? How did we look at the universities? And how did we bring the research and development team into innovation as well? So through that opportunity, we connected with the Chief Scientist Office from NHS Scotland, and we managed to secure funding to get one person. So it was initially just myself and a programme manager who worked within that innovation space at the time. We now have expanded because we've managed to secure funding through grant funding and bids, that we have now got a team of 5 within the innovation team, led by an innovation lead, and there's 2 programme managers and project support officers. We work really closely with the research team to really kind of look at how we can spread innovation, but key to it's not just about technology, it's about that culture and how we can empower people to do things differently. So it's been a really exciting time for Forth Valley, being able to have that opportunity to have a dedicated team.
I love that, of course. So it seems like you were the spark to get the innovation program going at NHS Forth Valley. The question is, was it because of you and your role that NHS Forth Valley has an innovation component and the others do not? And do you see them starting to implement innovation at the other boards?
It's an interesting question, I suppose, and one for me to reflect on. I think there was something for me that my background was in nursing and quality improvement, and there was an opportunity for me to think about the innovation side of it. So I was really, really passionate about it and how we could do things differently, and use different technology, use all the skills that I had brought to really build the team. And at the time, the NHS was in a state of recovery, so how would we be able to transform? So I suppose some of it was down to my vision and me as a person to be able to kind of take that forward. In other boards, the way it works throughout Scotland is there's not such a thing as an innovation team. It's more research and development. So we have been more fortunate in Forth Valley to actually have the funding and the buy-in from the NHS board to be able to be visionary and look at what that would look like forward for us. It's really humbling to even for me to reflect on where we've came from through that journey.
So that's really interesting. And because of your focus on innovation, we then got to do this 6-month program with your staff at the NHS Forth Valley. So I'll give a little context here. So in the States, I run a program called the Johnson & Johnson Nurse Innovation Fellowship Program, which is a year-long fellowship with chief nursing officers and senior nurse leaders where they learn about the human-centered design methodology and then apply what they've learned back at their institutions over that year-long program. We had talked about doing a similar program here with the NHS. We were able to sort of truncate that and take components of the work that I've been doing in that fellowship and implement it here with NHS Forth Valley. And so I'd love to talk with you, David, about the work that you did. So we're joined here by David Watson, who was one of the team leads. We ended up having 4 different teams of multiple nurse leaders from within NHS Forth Valley who used the human-centered design methodology to identify problems that they were dealing with in their daily practice, and then worked to explore what the issues were from the end users and create a solution. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, why you were interested in participating in this program, what you learned, and if you think it's an important skill for nurses to be learning.
Yeah, thanks, Marion. I'm relatively new in terms of working in Forth Valley, so just under 2 years. And just to recap on some of the conversations we've already had, so I was quite impressed when I joined Forth Valley about the relationships with the higher education institutions, because in previous boards where I've worked, that's not been experienced. And for me, when I came here, I'd already graduated with my clinical doctorate, so I was really enthused about the relationship and the drive to take forward research and innovation. And given the current climate in NHS Scotland for value-based healthcare and population health, then innovation is the key to how we can achieve that across organisation from that point of view. Regarding taking part in this process, in this programme, so Forth Valley was well underway through delivering a Safer Together collaborative, which was heavily underpinned by a quality improvement programme, heavily supported by Wendy and our QI team. But I was quite keen to see actually how could we complement that, and certainly this model allows us to truly understand the end user, because sometimes in my experience applying QI, we focus more sometimes on the system and the process, and we sometimes lose the end user actual experience. What did that feel like to be the staff member in that scenario, or the patient receiving the care in that environment? So this gave us a really good opportunity. And I guess we're all guilty in nursing of being fixers, and I went in with insight that I was biased to what I thought the solution may be for the group we were working in. However, this process kind of forces you to put your bias to the side and actually really take a proper step back and take an overview, but also listen. And I think that's what really nursing is looking for just now. The nursing workforce and on the floor, the clinical team are looking to be heard. So this process and this methodology allowed us to apply that.
Can you talk a little bit about what the problem area was that you were focusing on and the solution that you were able to create through this program?
Yep, certainly. So here in Forth Valley, what we found was one of our wicked spots, I guess, hot spots, areas for improvement, where our ICE intensive care unit. So like many areas across the country and across the world, I guess, the COVID pandemic had a significant toll on critical care. And we had a large excess of very experienced critical care staff leave those areas. As a result, then the skill mix within those areas is reduced, and that brings with it significant challenges. As such, in Forth Valley, we had a problem retaining and recruiting staff to an intensive care unit here. And it's a nice big unit spread over 3 bases. It's a really good opportunity. However, we were unable to achieve full recruitment into those posts. So we wanted to try and understand what that process was. So it was a collaborative team. There was myself, at the time of this project commencing, I was Chief of Nursing for the acute services at Forth Valley, but also there was a lead nurse who had professional oversight of intensive care, and there was two of our other colleagues, Kat Robertson and Nikki Riddell, who were aligned to workforce. So we got together to try and work out actually how can we tackle this and how can we apply this methodology to that. So we met with, rather than going in with our bias, as I'd said earlier, we met with the group. So we did several focus groups, and we invited staff from band 3, 5, 6, 7s and 8s to those focus groups, and with some key open questions, I guess, to start the conversation at those focus groups. But what we wanted to really understand was, as a nurse in intensive care, what did it feel like on a daily basis to come in to deliver care and to work in that environment? And from those focus groups, we teased out key themes, and then we met with the teams again and went back to the teams to clarify actually from the focus group, this is information we've gleaned from it. Is this a true reflection of what you see as the key themes? And then we worked with them to then almost rag rate or prioritise actually what was the biggest issue. We were honest to the team. We said our bias when we went in, we thought the problem for ITU was our application of rostering. The team very quickly informed us that was a misconception, and through the exploration of their experiences, rostering was an issue, but it was way down that priority list. But what that allowed us to do was then focus our solutions on the big key meaty ones that they were seeing as their key priorities. For them, the concern was about their inability to have the skill set. So the problem statement was, I'm an ICU nurse working in intensive care, and I'm trying to develop my knowledge and education to allow me to deliver safe clinical care to level 2 and level 3 patients. And the staff were saying they were concerned they weren't getting the exposure to the educational opportunities because they were being redeployed across the site to try and mitigate staffing issues. So we worked with them then, and it's quite an open mind to say actually, so what are the solutions? And rather than the team who were coordinating this come up with the solutions, we asked the staff to identify those solutions. So there was true ownership from them.
That's great. And I'm wondering, now that you're at the end of at least the formal program, are there some takeaways that you've learned or things that you're going to keep using for other programs or other problems you're trying to solve for?
So when I first started this program and we were going through the slide set, I can remember looking at the empathy mapping and thinking, "Oh, that's just a different word for process mapping. It's just the same. It's just the same as QI methodology. It's just a different name for it." How wrong was I? Because there's so much more to it, and what I've taken from this is how much more empathy mapping can truly add to your understanding, I guess. And through that understanding, then you truly get insight into what the true crux of the problem is, but also what are the wider solution opportunities. For me, and the feedback was very much about the staff felt heard. They were very open and very vocal at the focus groups, maintaining professionalism but very open and vocal. But that's what they needed, and that was evident. And there is something about that process of sitting round a table and seeing folk face to face, and actually them seeing you hear them, truly hear them, rather than it being in a survey or an audit or whatever the case may be. It was that connection, I guess. And me and Wendy have conversations about this connectivity and the importance of that continuously. So for me, that was really important. But also their ability to help influence what the potential solution may be. So there is, for example, an SBAR going forward to try and recruit or to request to recruit 2 Band 6 clinical educators. So there's more expertise at the bedside to help our newly qualified nurses and nurses who are not yet clinically recognised as critical care trained nurses to achieve that level. Also, a protocol regarding when we do redeploy staff, have we done a proper risk assessment of actually the risk within the unit? We're very good at identifying the risk in the greater site, but actually, what does the risk look like in the unit if we move a staff member? Because what was very informative was actually none of the staff felt that it shouldn't be moved. They understood when there was a clinical risk that it had to be moved to mitigate risk to patient safety and other staff wellbeing. But what they were saying is they wanted it to be more informed, and they wanted their opinions as experts in their field about the impact that may have on our delivery of critical care services. And I can see how we can transfer this process to a variety of other problems across Forth Valley, where again it goes back to the point of listening to our staff and getting that end user engagement. So yeah, I can see how it's transferable, these skills, and I can see how lovely it complements the QI approach.
I've learned a lot over these last 2 weeks and especially over the last 6 months, but nothing more than we're all really struggling, it seems, with very similar problems and trying to come up with human centered solutions that really help to meet our organizational needs, but also our staff, colleagues, patient needs. So I really commend all of you for taking the time to implement this process in a really meaningful way. So I want to wrap up with one question to you, Ashley and Wendy. We started talking about this program more than a year ago, and now we're at the close of it. This was our closing pitch event today. Any takeaways from either of you and thoughts about where we go from here or where you all go from here?
I think for me, when we started the journey, I wasn't sure where it was going to take us, to be honest. I think I was like that. What does this mean? I think being here today and listening to everybody pitch, I think I feel inspired. And I think I feel excited for what comes next for us. I think Ashley and I need to consider how we look at how we integrate this approach for students who are going to the future of the nursing for Forth Valley. And I think for me, as Dave has described, it's how do we support how we roll out this methodology for all of the challenges and problems that we're facing currently. We know that we need to implement value-based health and care. And that is a hugely transformational programme for us. So taking this human designed approach will be key for us moving forward. So I guess what I'm going to say is I'm excited. It's been a really, really fantastic opportunity to work with yourself, Marion, on this journey. So lots for us to consider moving forward.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Wendy said, there's been a real buzz in the faculty when you've been here over the last 2 weeks, Marion, and I'm really excited about how we can use the design thinking methodology and have that as an integral part of our undergraduate program. So as Wendy says, so that we can start training the students in design thinking so that when they're qualified and they end up working largely in NHS Forth Valley, they can take those skills with them. They've been doing that with quality improvement, and I can't see why we can't also teach the students this design thinking methodology. And we're also going to be using it in the faculty here. We met with staff yesterday to discuss how we can use design thinking to improve our program. It's something we continually strive to do, but again, we've been guilty of identifying the problems in our program and then taking them away and the lecturers themselves coming up with solutions, which is clearly the wrong thing to do. So now we're very much keen to meet with our students on a regular basis, find out from them what are the problems with the program, but also find out from them what they think the solutions to those problems will be. So yeah, really exciting, and I think the relationship between us and Forth Valley will go on and get even better. And I think the projects that were discussed today were absolutely fantastic in the board. So I'm really excited about the future.
Well, thank you all for your time today, for your generosity, and for your commitment to not only the innovation process, but to your students, your staff, and your patients. It's been seriously such an honor to work with you all over this past 6 months and these last 2 weeks. And yeah, here's to more collaborations in the future. Hello, Angela, my friend. How's it going on the Eastern United States front?
Hi, Marion. It's amazing as per usual. I really enjoyed listening to your interview with our colleagues from the University of Stirling.
Across the pond, man, it was great. I loved every single solitary second of working with my colleagues at the University of Stirling and also at the NHS Forth Valley. This was all due to a Fulbright project grant that we got between the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing and those two entities over in Scotland. And it was just incredible.
Yeah, I find it so fascinating listening to the perspective because their healthcare system is so different. It's obviously the complete inversion of ours, right? It's a public run system. It's everything is proactive because they're caring for the patients literally from the beginning of life till the end of life, as opposed to our system where the insurance company is kind of biding their time that you're not going to get sick until you're off their dime. So, the fact that they see so much value in human-centered design, in creating an innovation sector that would really help them to enhance care of their patients, I think says so much in its potential to save money and take better care of patients.
I couldn't agree more. And so I went over there to help them think about how to create an innovation ecosystem based on the work that we've done at Penn Nursing. But I learned so much about how the NHS system over there works, how university education works, and the problems and struggles that they're having. And I'll tell you, they're not any different than what we're struggling with over here. So even though we do have, as you say, inverse healthcare systems, we're all dealing with the same problems and the same struggles. Retention, recruitment, communication, workplace violence, burnout. I run the Johnson & Johnson Nurse Innovation Fellowship Program, which is for senior nurse leaders of health systems across the United States. They're dealing with the same exact problem as these NHS folks are dealing with in Scotland. And so, I find it a couple of things. I find it really interesting that we're all struggling with the same things, even though we have such different healthcare systems. I find it reassuring that, safety in numbers and a lot of people are trying to solve these problems across the pond, back and forth. But also, it's really a shame and discouraging that even with two very different health systems, that we can't figure out how to make a system that works for patients, nurses, other healthcare providers. That makes me sad in a way. Like, I would think we'd be able to just figure this out by now, but I guess we're working on it. That was the point of this Fulbright. That's the point of the work that we're doing with the Johnson & Johnson Nurse Innovation Fellowship, is to help clinicians figure out how to solve these problems, and hopefully not just at an individual organizational level, but really being able to push that out beyond.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is taking really good ideas and bringing them to scale so that they are, beneficial to everyone. And I think that that's where I see your innovation program is so incredibly helpful, because I think that it's a roadmap for that, right? Bringing it to scale and designing something and creating iterations of it that are going to work in other places and not just the place where it was piloted.
Yeah, totally. And that's sort of the point of it. Yes, you want it to be human-centered to the needs of your specific population and in the context of whatever environment you're working in, but also being able to then take that and apply it out as well in a way that meets, maybe the NHS Fourth Valley needs, or vice versa, institutional needs in the US. So there are ways to do that. And I'm glad that I was able to go over there and have these conversations with them and really start to help jumpstart their innovation programs, because it is a lot of really thoughtful, engaged, smart people who want to do right by their patients, by their students, by their faculty and colleagues. So I was just so thrilled to be able to help in a small part to use what we're doing, again, here at Penn Nursing to help them over at Stirling and Fourth Valley.
Amplify Nursing is hosted by Dr. Angela Rosa DiDonato and Marion Leary, and produced by the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing. Music for the podcast was created by Harper Leary. The podcast is made possible by the Krista and Rich Pinola Fund for Innovation in Nursing.
Until next time, keep pushing over, under, around, and through. We want to thank you for listening to the Amplify Nursing podcast, and remind you to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you enjoy your podcast listening. And if you can do us a solid, please rate and review us as well. It will go a long way in amplifying our episodes.